How often after a bad tournament do you hear anglers say how humbling of a sport fishing really is? But you know what? I feel their pain because Lake Champlain sure humbled this guy right here. But it wasn't all bad. Stay tuned and I'll give you the recap. So we got BFL number 3 in the Northeast Division, Lake Champlain. What a wonderful lake. I absolutely love that lake. I know it didn't love me back in the tournament. 106th, 2 fish weighed in. Oh, man. But I'll tell you why I love that lake, because it was good to me in practice. That lake is just phenomenal. How big it fishes, there's not a lot of lakes left that fish as big as Lake Champlain. It's just incredible when you can fish areas and there's nobody around. You don't even see anybody. Now, sometimes that's a bad thing, but when you find fish, it's a good thing, all right? And I know the tournament didn't play out the way I wanted it to. But let's remember, this year's all about learning. No excuses, though. No excuses. Because a lot of times you have to go to a lake you've never been before. You got to find fish. You got to catch fish. And you got to make it happen in a tournament. And you're going to have bumps and bruises along the way. And this is one of them for me. It's not one I expected, though. Because in practice, yeah, that's right, practice, it was phenomenal. All right, I didn't even have to beat up my areas. But I did find a pattern that I could basically go anywhere in the vicinity of the lake I was. And I stayed on the New York side, the upper New York side, and also the upper Vermont side, which I know that's a lot of water. But yeah, I was looking for certain things. I was looking for vegetation, and I was looking for a contour that the fish were just sitting on. And they were. Anywhere I went around the lake, they were there. And I wouldn't beat up anything. I'd catch one here, one there. I mean, my co that was with me in practice was getting frustrated because I'd say, look on the map here, we're going to go right there. Out of this whole big area, I'd go boom. And first cast, 3.5, we're leaving. Second place we go to, boom, we're going to go right there. And again, first cast, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, no matter where I went. So I found a pattern. Now here's where a pattern can go bad. And this is what I think happened now that hindsight's being 20/20. The 2 days of practice, we had weather that's unlike New York. New York's usually windy. You have all these factors. We had dead calm conditions for 2 days of practice. Now we get into tournament day and we have wind. And I just believe that those fish that I found in practice were still there. They were just positioned differently. And if I could have put it together and made the right decisions in tournament day, again, hindsight being 20/20, I know those fish were still there. My co-angler and I really located them again. We just had a hard time getting them in the boat. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But it was a great day. Just like any day on the water. I had a great co-angler again, John Chakowski, awesome. Seasoned veteran, knows so much about the lake, but he really did a great job letting me do my thing. You know, sometimes anglers need to learn and have bumps and bruises along the way, make good decisions, make bad decisions. It's all learning, all right? And he could have had 16, 17 pounds that day. They'd get off right at the boat. They'd jump off. So many bad things that don't normally happen that day. All right, so it was just a matter of bad execution for both of us that day, bad decision making on my part, putting us on the right fish, and maybe moving around the lake too much, trying to chase fish instead of staying where you knew there was fish. Is something I might have done a little bit differently. Okay, but again, it's all part of that learning curve. That's why we're here. We got to learn. And tell me if you had learning experiences along your tournament paths or just a day on the lake. It doesn't always have to be a tournament to learn. Another thing I can tell you is from having a bad finish, you often learn more from a bad finish than if you're always having success. When we have success, we think we figured it out. Oh, we know what we're doing. When we have a bad day or a not so good tournament, we look back at those a lot more and we go, all right, well, what are the little details that I missed? Were there things that I did not quite grasp and I just missed it? And it's funny because John called me two days after the tournament, which again, he's awesome. And we kind of recapped that tournament together, and we both agreed on a lot of things. Staying where fish were. And that's uncharacteristic of me, leaving fish to go find fish. It's one of the errors that every angler makes, and I made it that day. But had an awesome practice. I learned how great that lake really is, and I don't have anything bad to say about it other than I just did not execute in the tournament. A lot of great anglers did not execute in that tournament. I know a lot of great anglers that would like to have that tournament back, so I'm not the only one. But again, no excuses for that. If I had to look back on the tournament, so let's look at what I was using as far as baits. There are some baits I'm not going to show you just because they didn't play as much as maybe they could have or should have, or maybe they did for somebody that was there. But a drop shot, I was drop shotting a worm and also a little minnow type bait. Caught some fish, but they were oftentimes either dinks or they were different species. Okay, you got to remember, for this tournament, the bass had to be over 15 inch. If it would have been a 12-inch limit, I would easily had a limit, but it wouldn't have amounted to anything. A 15-inch at Champlain is, an average, maybe even below average fish for there. So we talked about the drop shot. Next player was a Senko. I had a largemouth area that a Senko played in practice. Those fish were still there in tournament day, but they were just, again, all under 15 inch. Third lure would have been a Carolina rig. Carolina rig got me some big bites in pre-practice on my first trip up there, just kind of tinkering around and trying to figure out how the lake's set up and where I could navigate and all that. Every once in a while, I'd stop somewhere and throw a Carolina rig. And I was throwing a strikeking menace on the back of that Carolina rig, and it worked exceptionally well. It got me bigger bites, not a lot of bites, but some bigger bites. In tournament day, that's a bait that I probably should have thrown more. Looking back, hindsight being 2020, that could have been a player on that real windy conditions and things like that. Now, let's look at the baits that did play for me, for the most part. First bait is going to be a Ned Rig. Ned Rigs seem to work everywhere, especially when there's smallmouth and a good population of them. Also, you will catch largemouth as well. This setup I have here is a Speed Demon Pro shaky head rod. That's right, I use a shaky head rod. Also, we have a Sharky 3 here, 3000 series, with a Cast Pro braid, 10-pound test, to an 8-pound fluorocarbon leader. Now, this 8-pound fluorocarbon leader is probably about 12 foot long. Now, my Ned rig's a little bit different than most. Might be similar, I don't know, but I think it's a little bit different. Is I power Ned rig. So I go with a heavier Ned head always. This is going to be a 1/4 ounce, and this is a Z-Man. Also, we went with the Z-Man TRD here and yoga pants. And it's one of my favorite colors. I also caught fish with a pumpkin color, a green pumpkin color. And it didn't really seem to matter. It was just mostly finding the fish and dropping it on a fish that wanted to eat a Ned rig. The next bait that really played for me would have been a jig. And this is Kitech 1/2 ounce jig with a tantrum on it by Riot Baits. This was my big fish bait in practice. I did catch one first thing in the morning on tournament day, and I thought, oh, we're game on. But just didn't keep going there. This setup here is a Para G2, 7'1", medium heavy, with a Bassinator Classic 8:1-to-1 gear ratio and 15-pound fluorocarbon, straight fluoro. If you ever watch a lot of my YouTube videos or look at my social media, this is a setup that's gonna always play for me. And my third setup here that actually played at the end of the day on tournament day was my top water. I found a spot in practice, in pre-practice actually, that I remembered. It clicked in with about half an hour left in the tournament, and I go, you know what, I got one more spot I want to try. Now I knew it would be a fish catching spot, I just didn't realize how big the fish were there. And that was top water, okay? This is a Sexy Dog by strikeking. Now I put that on a Speed Demon Pro jerkbait rod. It's a 6'10" jerkbait rod. All I do is I take my reel with the fluorocarbon off, and I put the Bassinator Classic 8:1-to-1 gear ratio with braid. And usually I'll go, depending on what top water I'm running, 30 to 50 pound braid, Cast Pro, and straight to my bait. Now, I did learn up there that a lot of the anglers that are throwing top waters are doing a mono leader. So I might try that next time or on my next fishing adventure. And what that could do is help with hookup. It also could help with the fish not seeing that braid in this real clear water. But those are my baits. So to recap the recap, there's good and bad news. The bad news is 106th place, 2 fish weighed in, 6 pounds. If you would have told me that going into the tournament, I'd say, there ain't no way. But it happened, all right? The good news is, going into that event in the BFL, I was sitting in 24th in points. Coming out of the event, even though I got 106th, sitting in 29th in points. So it really, it hurt, but it didn't hurt as bad as it could have hurt. So we got away with one there. We learned, and it didn't cost us too much. But we definitely can't go into the next one at Cayuga learning bad lessons again. All right, we got to try to figure something out. And I'm hearing Cayuga's fishing tough this year. Although, you know, it's our job as anglers, especially on the boat owner side, to figure it out. That's why we do what we do. And that's why I do what I do. I love to try to put the pieces of the puzzle together. So next event, Cayuga, let's do it. So thank you for following along. If you have any questions, comments, put them down below. Please subscribe, like, and let's keep going. And remember, like I always say, there's no such thing as a bad day on the water.